Welcome, Sigma males, and those of us who are not Sigma males and want to learn more about what Sigma males are like, what we like, and how to exist peacefully with Sigma males. This video is about why you want a Sigma male as your friend, your partner, your lover, your boyfriend, on your team, in your network, whatever it is. In another video, I made a guide to why the world needs Sigma males right now. But this video I wanted to make for people who are just wanting to learn about Sigma males and want to learn who they are. Maybe they're not Sigma males themselves, but they want to learn what they're like, their strengths, etc. So this video is specifically for people who want to know why they might want to befriend a Sigma male, or even go deeper, why they might want to develop a deep connection with someone like us. And I think this video represents a good learning tool for Sigma males themselves, because it reminds you of what you are, who you are, and what makes you special. And I make this video without arrogance or cockiness. And my goal is not to just talk about how great Sigma males are, because I know, and all Sigma males know, that there are plenty of flaws and weaknesses within us. So let's get into why you would want to befriend a Sigma male, why you would want them on your Rolodex, your team, your list of contacts, your social circle. So number one, we think for ourselves and we think by ourselves. So a lot of what we do is done by ourselves. And because of this, we draw conclusions that are outside of what a lot of people use for their process of making assumptions or making judgments. So we have a tendency to push ourselves away from other people. And because of this, we sometimes make our objective choices through different kinds of facts and knowledge and things like that. And we listen to our own inner voice to understand why something might be the right thing. And this is actually very difficult for Sigma males. This is something that creates a lot of chaos within us, because many times you can see both sides so well that you don't know how other people can exist in this reality. You see two sides of things and, oh my God, I that's right, and that's also right, and you just don't know. And it's very difficult for us, but I think it is a strength for us, because we can be very rational and we can be very objective when others aren't able to be. Number two, as Sigma males, we're able to balance a certain masculinity with a certain bit of empathy and sensitivity. And all this talk of toxic masculinity that goes on right now doesn't make sense for us, because we're introverted, we're a little more sensitive, a little more deep, mysterious, and we don't understand why there's this war on masculinity, when the war is really only on this tiny segment of masculine behavior, this toxic masculinity. So I think that we are able to balance that middle ground of being able to be masculine, those masculine traits, what makes you a man, with also having empathy and sensitivity and compassion, and knowing when things are making other people uncomfortable or you're not being a kind of good person. I think a lot of people nowadays are mistaking sociopathy, narcissism with masculinity, and it's just not true. So I think you want these kind of beacons of what positive masculinity can look like. Number three, we understand what the true minority is. We understand what it is to be misunderstood, marginalized. We know that the individual is the true minority. And that goes back to number one, where we think for ourselves and we're able to look at things more objectively and understand that we know what it's like to feel misunderstood. We know what it's like to feel marginalized. We know what it feels like to be alone. And it doesn't matter your sex, your skin color, your religion, whatever it is. We know what it feels like to be alone. And that is always a good skill, because you don't want to surround yourself with people that don't understand what it means to experience the whole range of life. It's like if you hang out with trust fund babies or something, and then you try to go travel with them, and some small thing happens and they just don't know how to handle it because they've never been in that situation where they have to use their own senses and sort of tough it out, rough it out. And I think that goes for feeling misunderstood too. You want to spend time with people who have been in the worst places mentally. Those people are typically the most interesting people you'll meet. People that have confronted their own death, people that have been depressed, people that have been truly humbled by failure, isolation, various things. Those people are most always more interesting than the person who goes through his whole life and never had a sad day their whole life. So number 4, reasons why you might want to have a Sigma male on your team, in your friend group, your social circle, in relationships. We see the world through a deep and profound filter. So we look at the world as it is right now through very philosophical, profound, deep, interesting, abstract lenses. And again, this is sort of at our own demise because it's sometimes very difficult to understand, but the world doesn't need more friends and people in your social circle that are surface level, shallow, boring, dumb. Complex people are more interesting. And I think if you have a Sigma male in your group, it's going to help you look at the world in a different way. And this is something I see with my best friend. He calls himself a very shallow person. He admits that he's a sort of shallow person. And I disagree. I don't think he's a shallow person. But he always thanks me and expresses gratitude that I help him see a more deep aspect of life. And on the flip side, he helps me see sort of simplicity and being happy with silly conversations and being able to talk about sports. And I think that contrast is very important in relationships. And that's why I think it's important for you to spend time with people who can appreciate the depth of life, who see life truly in a different way. And it's interesting because the people we admire up top are usually people who are very abstract and think very differently. When you think of people like Russell Brand, Joe Rogan, people like that, extremely popular, extremely likable. And we don't like them because they're simple people. They're very abstract, very spiritual, see the world through a much different lens than the average person. Even Elon Musk, someone like Elon Musk, what makes him great is that he sees the world through a deep filter. It might not represent what you think is spirituality, but he sees his work and his vocation and his calling in an incredibly deep way. He might not conceptualize it in a religious way or spiritual way, but there's certainly something about his life that has a deep profundity that you or I might not be able to see. So number 5, we prefer a more human, simple, traditional, spiritual, natural way of life. And I think that's important as everybody moves towards this, what I would consider inhumane life. We're moving away from what makes us human. We're moving away from what makes us animal. And it's kind of destroying us. And you can tell this, I don't care what studies say or what sort of research has been done by people that are paying these sort of things. You can tell what's happening to humanity and human happiness through how the world looks right now today and in the last 20 years. And this is a controversial belief, but I believe that it has to do with social media and tech that is advanced, like smartphones and devices. I think those two things have shattered our human way of life, on top of the fact that the industrial age and the information age and the internet has shaped how we work, how we play, all these different things. So you might want to spend time with people who prefer the human way of life. You might not be ready to say, you know what, I'm going to give up my smartphone. But you might want to spend time with a Sigma male who might think that, or maybe it's not a Sigma male, but being around those people who prefer a natural way of life, even if you don't choose that yourself, is always going to help round you out. And I think that's why Sigma males are very important for humanity right now. Number 6, we are good lovers. We are loyal friends. Even though we may choose to not have big social groups or things like that, we can be very loyal to our friends and good lovers because we're sensitive and we can have that access to our emotional side. And really brings me to the next point, number 7. I'll tell you a story before I tell you what it is. I met this guy and he was extremely interesting. He sat down next to me and asked me if he could charge his phone. And then we just started talking. And I had a wonderful conversation with him. Except something was missing. And after talking with him for 2 hours, he left and I said we should exchange contact and meet up sometime. But I never followed up because something was missing and I didn't understand what it was until hours later. What was missing was that he knew nothing about me. I had spent the whole time listening to him. And he was interesting. And he said a lot of interesting things. But I felt some sort of shallow thing that he never listened to me once. I never had the opportunity to speak. He didn't get to know me at all. He didn't ask me questions. And I think as Sigma males, we're always listening. We're always observing. And that comes from our introversion and our sort of intuitive perception and things like that, where we're just always observing. We're always listening. And we always ask interesting questions, I think. And that is such a great skill with people. It's someone you want to be around, that person that listens to you. Some of my favorite people in my life are the people that just listen. My friend Jake, one of my best friends, he's such a good listener. And he won't interrupt you. And you'll just find yourself talking about things and just giving yourself all the way in conversation. And it's such a powerful skill because he just asks questions. Number 8, we choose to build character traits over trying to be liked. Now, as introverted men, as people who are more traditional and focused on our own growth instead of trying to climb some ladder, we know what it's like to do things just to develop character within us or some interesting habit or personality trait. We spend a lot less time trying to achieve Ferraris and new smartphones and designer clothes and things like that because we're more focused on our self-development. And I just want to say this, if you're wondering what's wrong with being likable, if you have to ask that question when you think about Sigma males, and why would I want a Sigma male if he doesn't want to be likable? The road to hell is basically paved with trying to be liked, doing things out of being liked. You'll never get to know a person if they're spending their whole time trying to get your approval, trying to be liked by you. I promise you the most interesting friendships you have are because that person doesn't want your approval. They don't want your opinion, your likability. They don't care to be liked. It's very special to meet someone nowadays who doesn't need your approval because you know the friendship will be pure and you know that person will focus on doing the right thing and following some code that they have and offering value to people instead of trying to make you happy. And this is important in friendships and especially bringing people onto your team. If you're in some sort of managerial role, entrepreneurship, you're a CEO, don't stroke your own ego and try to find people that are just going to make you happy. And that guy makes me feel, I like him. He's a good guy, I like him. It doesn't matter if you like him, if you're building an organization. What matters is that he or she does the right thing at the right time for the right reasons. And the deathbed of organizations and companies is when a CEO only cares about doing things to be liked and he only brings people onto his ship because they're likable or they make him feel happy or pleasurable or whatever it is. Number 9, we think before we do. And while this might be dangerous for many of us because it causes a lot of hesitation, it's nice to spend time with someone who thinks before they do. You ever been out with someone who gets in street fights like so quickly, they escalate things so quickly, they do things impulsively, they get into trouble, They start confrontations. Generally, that's not a Sigma male. A Sigma male is very much a person who thinks before they do. In fact, they probably think and analyze and judge long before they think they're thinking, and way longer before they do. They've already plotted out what's going to happen. They've already thought about the consequences. And they're very over analytical at times, but sometimes that's good if you want to spend time with someone who has patience, who's going to take things slowly and not do anything irrational, emotional, and reactive. Number 10, we are a testament to the idea that to beat the system, you just have to pretend like it doesn't exist. And I think a lot of people today are trying to beat the system. And by trying to beat the system, they give the system their entire energy, all the energy. And I can't remember the book, but if I think of it, I'll put it in Reality Transurfing. I remembered it. He talks about the idea of pendulums and how there are things in the world that just swing. And actually, when we give them more energy, they swing harder. And so right now we're seeing that systemic things, systemic issues are actually swinging harder because we're giving them all the attention. We're giving our power away. We're giving our energy to these systems, and they're just swinging harder. Sometimes it's better to just ignore the elephant in the room. And by doing that, it takes the power away. And I think that's empowering for people to watch someone just be totally powerful in themselves. And by doing so, they strip all these oppressors and negative things of their power. If you've ever seen someone who's unimpressed by a sexy woman or an expensive car or wealth, it's so refreshing to meet that kind of person, because you know that they're powerful within themselves. When they don't give power to other things, they're able to just be confident in themselves and strip away these powerful sort of oppressive things by just not caring. And I think we could all use a little bit of that in our lives. The ability to just look at something and think, meh, has no power over me. Which brings me to my next part. Number 11, we represent freedom. And while the word freedom is very political nowadays and it's very controversial in ways, everybody thirsts for freedom, whether that's physical freedom, location freedom, freedom to have friends, freedom to move to another place, emotional freedom. Emotional freedom is so powerful nowadays. People don't understand that what they really want is emotional freedom, the ability to feel emotions freely instead of be told to what to feel. And I think when you're around people that are free, it's so liberating. And some of the most interesting people I've met are people that are free, who are just able to walk free of certain limitations, and they're always inspiring. I worked with a guy, and he was a person who was just very free of any sort of limitations. So you come to him with an idea. He's the CEO of a marketing agency. You come to him with an idea, or he thinks of an idea, and he's so free. He's so free of his own self-judgment, his own limitations, and he's just like, yeah, let's do it. And he's just so almost overly confident because he's free. He's free of those limitations. And it's so inspiring. You spend an hour with him, and then suddenly you feel like, yeah, let's do it. There's no limitation. So being around free people who have liberty within themselves and sort of have knocked over those barriers that stand between you and whatever you want, is so inspiring. Number 12, we do things for pure reasons, without agendas, without implied contracts. We don't need validation. We don't need approval. And I think this is very important because many times in life we are looking for approval from people. And I've experienced this with my father. As I get older, I understand that I'll ask for advice sometimes, as we all do. Even as Sigma males, we all still ask for advice. And really, I think I'm asking for advice, but secretly, on a deeper level, I'm asking for some validation or approval. And this is never good. This is never healthy. Because what happens when my father gives me advice? Doesn't matter what the advice is. I resent him because he didn't validate me or approve of me. And this is so common in life for people. They're doing things for these different reasons. They have hidden agendas. They're asking questions for different reasons. Asking questions to see if they can receive some sort of backwards validation around the outside of the fence. And those people are toxic on some level, even though we all do it. But I think, personally, I can recognize that, yeah, that was toxic of me to do that, and I'm trying to work on it. The last reason why I think that you should have a Sigma male in your community, your friend circle, on your team, is because you don't want to be on the opposite end of the Sigma male indifference. There's a bad side of being a Sigma male, and there's a bad side for others as well. There are many bad sides for us where we have weaknesses. We're not perfect, but we are very easy to be indifferent to something. And when you think of indifference, you think of love and hate, and indifference is in the middle, right? No. Love and hate are actually closer to each other. I don't know how to conceptualize this without drawing a graph, but we'll say love and hate are over here. They're sort of right here. And on this scale, it goes around like a U. And over here is indifference. But love and hate are actually closer to each other. Indifference is terrible. Indifference is the feeling of not feeling. And when you're on the receiving end of that, it's very painful. And I think of the example of the Sigma male indifference from the show Mad Men, where Don Draper has a subordinate. And Don Draper is a true Sigma male. And he has this employee. And this employee and him are having this disagreement. They're not getting along. And the employee gets in the elevator with him and he says something like, "You know what I think of you? Blah, blah, blah." And he starts throwing all these insults at him. And Don Draper goes, "I don't think of you at all." And he just walks out of the elevator. And it's so powerful because this employee has all these negative emotions and he's feeling all these feelings. And yet Don Draper feels nothing. And ultimately that gives him power. But if you have people in your organization or in your community, your social circle, they can easily, if they're Sigma males, they can easily become indifferent to you. And that's a horrible feeling. So these are my reasons why you might want to befriend a Sigma male. Go out of your way to make friends with one, to learn about one. Why you might want them on your team, on your project, in your study group, in a relationship, whatever it is. So thank you for learning about Sigma males, and I hope I shed some light on what it means to know what Sigma males really are. Thank you for understanding us. Thank you for trying to understand us, and good luck out there.